Welcome back to the City Current Show. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We're always honored to bring you inspiring stories of individuals and organizations making a difference, empowering the good. And we're going to be talking about helping single mothers. We are joined by Desneige VanCleve, founder and executive director of Grace Place Ministry. And Desneige, how are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it so much.
Absolutely. Well, you're doing so much to power the good. We appreciate you for sure. Give us a little background, a little history for starting Grace Place Ministry.
Yeah, sure. So I originally worked actually as a benevolence coordinator for a local church here in Hendersonville, Tennessee called Long Hollow. And through that process and through that ministry, the need for something like Grace Place was revealed. That ministry was specifically for people who were experiencing some type of financial crisis in the community to apply to and get help. And a lot of times I would be screening phone calls for the applications that would come in, and it would be a single mother who had children, who was either in a hotel that a church had provided for her the night before, she had to be out by 10, or she was staying with a friend, or maybe she had just gotten evicted and she had 3 days to get out. So many different stories, but it just really, really burdened me in a very powerful way that there wasn't any kind of resource here available to help single mothers and children who were experiencing homelessness. So that just put me on a long faith journey of asking a lot of questions and finding solutions. And then, so that began in 2013. And by 2015, we actually had a facility and a board of directors and our 501c3 status. And so we began operating. So we're in our 7th operating year now, serving single mothers and children who are homeless here in Sumner County.
You do a lot in terms of the programmatic side. There's a ton of support that goes into this, and resources and financial literacy and everything. And even, the job skills training, like there's a lot that goes into this. So go ahead and start diving into the program.
Our program was developed through a lot of trial and error and learning, even from organizations throughout the entire nation that do this kind of work specifically with the population that we serve. And so we have put a program together that is designed to eliminate every risk a mother comes in here with as a single mother. So we start with building a really solid foundation. And that includes things as simple as making sure mom has her vital records like birth certificates, social security cards, things that just get lost when you're displaced. We make sure through that section of her program when she first gets here that she's able to go to the dentist, that the children go to the dentist, that they get their health evaluations done. If mom has had a mental health diagnosis in the past and she needs treatment and she hasn't been able to stay engaged with treatment, we want to make sure that this is where we give mom that opportunity. So it covers so many different things. Our mission statement is empowering single mothers in need and their children toward developing healthy, safe, and independent lives in the community. So through health, safety, and independence, those 3 things are kind of what the whole program is built on. So once we have moms, and another thing is there's like an emotional health part of our foundational time that they're with us that we focus on too. There's a curriculum that they go through, and then they have access to different community collaborations we have for professional counseling if they want that. So it's really, we build a solid foundation, but at the same time, we are looking deeply into each family's lives and assessing, okay, what does this mom need? And what can we help her with? What are her goals? What are her obstacles? So what does her program look like? Because it's not the same for every single family. Now there's a pathway that we've identified, but it's just not the same. So once we have the foundational structure in place for each family, mom's going to move into full-time employment with a livable income, which is difficult for our population, especially with what the minimum wage is, obviously. And so we want mom to find something anywhere from $13 to $15 an hour. So we give her the time that it takes to do that. And there's resume and job training and all kinds of things that happen in that period of time as well. She looks for a first shift job, which is critical because it has to be employment that she has while there are reliable childcare facilities open. Instead of relying on friends and family for childcare, that's been one of the things we've been able to identify as one of the patterns. That's not what's best, really. So once full-time, first shift, Monday through Friday job and employment is secured, she's going to move into securing her own transportation. Over 90% of our families come in without any transportation of their own. And Sumner County doesn't have public transportation. So that's something that we learned quickly we needed to build into our program. So they save up for transportation. If there's any kind of legal issues with their driver's license, we make sure that they get all that taken care of. They buy a car outright while they're here in our program so that they don't leave with a car payment with an already tight budget. Once they're finished with that, we move right into a credit restoration part of our program where they tackle any kind of threatening debt. So our mothers can't, an eviction is a threatening debt. That's what we consider a threatening debt because it prevents them from being able to rent in the future. Utility debt, title loans, student loans, anything that can issue a wage garnishment or a refund garnishment, we want to make sure that mom tackles while she's in this section. And what's really awesome about this time is we have super awesome incentives for helping them pay off their debt. So their credit usually comes up about 120 points during this period of their time with us. And so once they're done with threatening debt, they save up an emergency fund. We want them to leave with at least $2,000. And then they search for housing, or they can transition into our graduate program, which only has 3 spots. So it just depends on whether there's an opening in our graduate program. But once they move into complete housing, they've graduated, and our families, we set up their whole apartment. The community gets involved. We have gently used donated furniture, and then all of our donor network in this community literally provides everything that they need for their apartment. So mom goes to work that day, takes her kids to childcare, goes to work that day, and then she comes home that night to a beautifully decorated and set up home. And most of the time it is the very first home she's ever had on her own. And so it's just a beautiful moment for her. And, that mom typically, depending on how she comes in and the barriers we got to work through, she's been with us anywhere from 6 months to 1.5 years. And she has worked hard and she has done an amazing job to get to that spot. So it's always a really precious moment.
Talk about success rates, because when you go through the program, you've had tremendous success rates. So talk about what success looks like on your end.
So success looks like different things. Our success rate as far as our families avoiding homelessness again, which is the one that everybody wants to know, that's the most important one, is 86%, which is huge. And we're really, really, really excited and proud of that number, just because when you start out doing this work, you don't realize how complicated it really is going to be to try to help these families restore their lives. And so there's a lot of things that have to get figured out, and there's just a lot of things to step through. And for our moms to put their lives back together, I mean, all we're really giving them is time and support and acceptance and love and grace. But they have to do a lot in that time frame to position themselves to be able to remain independent. And they have to learn habits and discipline that most of us don't have to live with. Their budgets are so tight when they leave here that the idea of eating out even once or twice a month is going to be a budget breaker. So that success rate really is so good because the program's great, but really these moms are awesome. These single moms in this community who are doing this work and going through this program, they're just out there making us really look good. So that's the success rate. Of course, when there's any kind of substance abuse relapse, that's what's going to make up a large amount of the 14%. That's not 100%. And as the founder and executive director, of course, it drives me crazy that it's only 86% and it's not 100. But so the other thing that we did with our engagement rate, because you've got your success rate, how many people are remaining independent, but then you've also got to consider, okay, well, how many are actually completing the program? And we moved to an incentive-based model about 2.5 years ago. And we built in a lot of different types of incentives to keep momentum in the program for the mothers. Because you're talking, 1.5 years of a program run, that's hard. That's hard. So we put some incentives in there. And when we did that, it changed our engagement rate to completion, our graduation rate to 77%, which was, that came up about 25% through that time frame. So that's awesome. We're really excited about that. So, But, you know, we can talk about success in so many ways. There's surveys that they take about self-esteem and about life skills and financial literacy, you know, before they get here, where they just feel really lost and unequipped. And it shows in those surveys. And then they take them again when they leave. And it's just night and day as far as how our moms feel confidence wise to handle all the different facets of life. So I think that's great success too. So.
Well, and to your point, every family, every single mother and her family, like that's a success story in and of itself.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think, you know, I kind of want you to touch on this in terms of what you see is, to me, these women are coming in and they're going to be hard workers because they want what's best for themselves and their families, their children. And so it's like they just need someone to help them and guide them and put them in the right position to thrive, and then let them blossom, right? And so I think that's where, for us as a community, realizing that we have an important opportunity to transform not only their life, but the, you know, generational effect of this for their children by stepping in and pouring in and helping you and your organization obviously love on them and give them the support that they need to thrive. Kind of give that illustration in terms of the women that you're working with, these families. What do you see from them?
Yes. So when a mother first gets here, just because of how she's had to do life for so long, she's in a very survival-based mindset. And so you're worried about today at all times. And it's hard to make that shift from survival mode to, oh, you know what, let's think about this with right now in mind, but also let's be future oriented as well. And so that's a huge part of the transformation that has to happen. And that's all brain, and I could get into trauma and brain science and all of that, but that will bore everybody to death. I love it, but I understand not everybody does. But we are a trauma-informed organization, and that kind of leads into what I want to say next. Our mothers, I mean, the statistics of reoccurring complex trauma that has gone on usually since early childhood is an enormous factor in the way that they navigate through life. And so if we don't have a trauma-informed approach, we're not going to be doing much help, because if their brain doesn't access executive functioning, which that's where we rationalize, that's where we make decisions, that's where we think about things and organize and things that, if you're not completely traumatized and your brain is functioning and accessing that normally, great. But for a lot of our families, there has to be some work put into that. And it's something that we have to learn. So the reason why it's so inspiring, why our mothers are so inspiring, is because they come in here so beat up. If you were to ask them, a lot of them, what they want to do with their life, there's just a long pause and silence, and then almost anxiety, because they don't have an answer to that, because they've never even been given the time to take a deep breath and think about that. If you ask them what they feel like they're good at, there's a long pause. So when we get to watch women come into a place like Grace Place, or any place that's serving this kind of population, with a program or anything, any way that somebody's trying to help, and you get to watch them go from literally not having a clue what they want to do with life, only thinking about getting through this day, and you get to see them start to wonder, or you get to tell them, hey, I noticed this about you now that I've gotten to know you. You have a really strong skill set in this specific area. And that light bulb comes on, and they all of a sudden start getting fired up about planning and creating a plan. And they want to go meet with Vol State here, our community college, to see what options there is just nothing like that. There is nothing like that in the world, to watch somebody. It's almost like you're truly like watching somebody go from hopelessness to dreaming big dreams. And it's just beautiful. So
I love it.
As you can tell, I'm crazy about it, and I'm crazy about our mamas.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I'm glad you painted that picture. I think that's extremely important. Carry that forward into how we can help. How can we help you?
Well, you can help. So we're a nonprofit, and of course we're privately funded. So there's always the need for our operating budget. So I proudly ask for financial support everywhere I go. To the community who are believers, in Jesus Christ, we ask for your prayers. We are a faith-based ministry. And so just your prayers over everything, leadership here, our board of directors, and our moms who come. That's a huge ask that I want to make sure I put out there. We have a list of consumables that our families go through on our blog, on our website, which is graceplaceministryinc.org. And we keep that updated. If you think about what you go through in your own house with your own family, we go through that times 5 at a time, 5 families at a time. So our community is really, really generous, and the consumables help our families a lot. It helps them make it through the program quicker because they don't have to use their own resources for those things. And then of course, share about us on social media, share with anybody you talk to if you think about it, because the more people who know that we're here and the more people who understand what our single parent families are going through, especially in low income working situations, and just the lack of affordable housing and childcare being extremely expensive too, just all those things that are so complicated that they have to step through. The more awareness there is of that, the more compassion there will be, and the more help there will be from nonprofit agencies, churches, but even all the way up through legislation and policy. So, yeah.
You mentioned it, but go ahead and mention it again. Website, social media, where do we go to learn more about Grace Place Ministry?
So the website's www.graceplaceministryinc.org. And you can find us on Facebook, Grace Place Ministry, Instagram. We just started our very first TikTok a week and a half ago. So we've entered that world. I don't know that we have a second video up yet, but you can find us on there and follow us. That's fun. A lot of them will be my staff probably making fun of me. So that's great. And then, our phone number is 615-881-3976.
Well, Desneige, greatly appreciate everything you and your amazing team are doing. So thank you for coming on the show.
Oh, thanks for having me. I appreciate it so much.